Amy's pulse quickened. She could feel the walls closing in on her. "Brick, please," she began, her voice trembling. "Enough," Brick cut her off, his tone sharp. "I will find out myself." The line went dead. Amy lowered the phone, her hand shaking. Kaylin's smirk deepened as he folded his arms. "So, this is the man you're tangled with now? Sue Brick himself? No wonder you tried to hide the children." "Shut your mouth," Amy snapped, though her voice lacked its usual strength. "You don't know what you're talking about." Brett stepped closer, his eyes cold and unreadable. "Madam, you need to come with me. Sir is on his way." Amy's stomach dropped. Brick was coming here, to the hospital, where her children were locked away in a lab for a DNA test. Her world spun. If Brick saw them now, there would be no turning back. "Over my dead body," Kaylin said sharply, blocking Brett's path. "These children belong to me, and no one, not even Brick Sue, will take them away." The words carried an arrogance that chilled Amy. She remembered Kaylin's family influence, his father's position in Abuja, his mother's ties to one of the most powerful royal households in Enugu. He was not bluffing. Brett, however, didn't flinch. "Do not provoke Mr. Sue. If you know what's good for you, you'll step aside." Amy's mind raced. The children. Her freedom. Two powerful men, both claiming authority over her life. And Elizabeth, was she silently watching, orchestrating things from the shadows? Before she could think further, a nurse rushed out from the lab. "Madam Amy. The DNA results, they're ready." Her breath caught in her throat. Kaylin smirked wider, confidence radiating from him. "Let's put an end to your lies, Amy." Brett's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, then at Amy. His expression hardened. "Mr. Sue is 5 minutes away." Amy's heart thundered. 5 minutes until Brick walked through that door. 5 minutes until the truth, whatever it was, exploded in all their faces. Amy felt her knees weaken, but she forced herself to stand tall. The sterile scent of the hospital stung her nostrils, and the murmurs from nearby patients in the corridor only seemed to amplify the silence pressing down on them. The nurse held an envelope close to her chest, clearly nervous at the atmosphere in the room. "Madam Amy, sir, the results are here," she said again, her eyes flicking between Amy and Kaylin. Kaylin stretched his hand, arrogance dripping from his every movement. "Give it to me. I ordered the test, and I will take it." Amy moved at the same moment, her fingers brushing the nurse's arm before Kaylin could grab the document. "No. It concerns my children, so I will read it first." "Children?" Kaylin chuckled darkly. "They are my children. That paper will only prove what I already know." Brett's voice came, calm but firm. "This result will not leave my sight until Mr. Sue arrives. If either of you wants to fight, you can wait for him." His words carried a weight that silenced even the boldness in Kaylin's tongue. Amy clutched the nurse's sleeve, whispering urgently, "Please, keep it safe. Don't give it to anyone until I say so." The nurse nodded quickly and stepped back, clearly wishing to vanish from the crossfire. But Kaylin's smirk returned. He leaned closer to Amy, his voice low and mocking. "You think hiding behind Brick will save you? You forget who I am. My family built half of Lagos. My uncle is a senator. If I want those children, no court in this country will deny me." Amy's jaw tightened. Memories of Kaylin's sweet words years ago twisted in her chest. How had he changed so much? Or had he always been this cruel, and she had just been too blind to see it? Before she could respond, the heavy thud of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Men in dark suits appeared, Brick security detail. Their presence drew fearful looks from staff and patients alike. And then, behind them, came Brick. His tall frame commanded the hallway, his sharp eyes burning with fury. The sight of him sent a chill through Amy's spine. "Kaylin," Brick's voice was like steel. "You've overstepped." Kaylin did not move. He only smiled faintly, though his eyes flashed with irritation. "Ah, Brick Sue. Always dramatic. I don't answer to you. Brick stepped forward, his presence filling the space, and Brett immediately handed him the sealed envelope. Sir, the DNA results are inside. The children are still in the lab. Amy's breath caught. Her whole body screamed for her to snatch the envelope, tear it apart, burn it before anyone could see. Brick's fingers brushed over the seal, but then his eyes shifted to Amy. Cold. Accusing. So, it's true. There are children. 6 of them. And you hid them from me. Her throat closed up. Brick, it's not what you think. Not what I think. He cut her off, his voice rising. Do you know what humiliation you've dragged me into? My own mother, the woman who fought for you, now suspects you've been lying from the beginning. And this, he raised the envelope slightly, this will tell me if you've been playing me for a fool. Kaylin barked a laugh. She was playing you, Brick. These children are mine, and she knew it all along. That's why she ran from me. But you, he leaned closer, sneering. You were too blind, too obsessed to notice. Brick's jaw clenched, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the envelope. For a moment, Amy feared he might strike Kaylin then and there. But instead, Brick turned to her, his voice dangerously low. Tell me, Amy, before I open this, do I have any reason to believe you? The corridor was silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Amy's lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to scream the truth, to explain the dangers, the fear, the web of lies she had been forced into. But her children's faces flashed before her eyes, and the words choked in her throat. Her silence was answer enough. Brick tore the seal open. The paper inside slid free with a sound that felt like thunder in Amy's ears. No, she cried, stepping forward, but 2 guards held her back firmly. Kaylin's smirk widened, waiting for his victory. Brick unfolded the paper slowly, his eyes scanning the lines. His expression shifted, once, twice, flickers of something Amy couldn't read. Rage. Shock. Betrayal. The silence stretched unbearably. Then, Brick raised his head. His gaze locked on Amy. His voice was deep, deadly calm. Explain this. Amy's heart pounded so violently she thought it might burst. She didn't know what the results said, but from the way both men were staring at her, she knew her nightmare had only just begun. Amy's chest rose and fell rapidly, each breath shallow and ragged. Her eyes darted from Brick's unreadable face to the paper in his hand. She could see Kaylin craning his neck, hungry to read what Brick was holding, but Brick refused to let him. Brick, please, she managed, her voice cracking. Don't waste your breath, he said coldly, lifting the paper higher. This result speaks louder than you ever could. The silence was suffocating. Every staff member in the corridor was frozen, their curiosity battling their fear of the men who stood before them. Kaylin, impatient, finally barked, Read it out, Brick. Let everyone here know she's been hiding my bloodline. Brick's sharp eyes flicked toward him, and for a fleeting second, Amy thought Kaylin would actually crumble under the weight of that glare. But Kaylin straightened himself, pride lacing his posture. Brick's lips curved into something between a sneer and a smile. He began to read aloud, his deep voice echoing off the tiled walls. DNA analysis result, probability of paternity. Amy's heart was pounding so hard that the words blurred in her ears. She wanted to cover them, to stop the world from hearing what came next. Brick paused. His eyes lifted slowly, deliberately, to meet hers. 0%. The words struck like a clap of thunder. Gasps filled the hallway. Even the nurse who had been trembling dropped the file she was holding. Papers scattered across the floor. Amy's knees nearly buckled with relief. Her hands trembled so hard she had to grip the wall behind her. But Kaylin, he was struck dumb for a second. Then he staggered forward, snatching the paper out of Brick's hand, his eyes scanning desperately. No, this is not possible. This test is rigged. It must be a lie. Brick stepped closer, his presence towering over him. My name alone can secure a hospital to deliver the truth. Do not insult my intelligence, Kaylin. These children are not yours. You've humiliated yourself. The arrogance drained from Kaylin's face, replaced by fury. He crumpled the paper in his fist and turned to Amy. Then whose are they? His voice cracked with desperation. Amy! Whose are they? Because I know you. You would never let another man close, not after me. If they are not mine, then... Brick's hand shot out, gripping his collar. Then what? He hissed, his voice low and dangerous. Say it, and I will make sure you regret every word. The two men stared each other down, their hatred thick enough to choke the air. Amy's breath trembled as she stepped forward, her voice finally breaking. Enough! Both of you! They both turned on her at once, Brick's eyes blazing with betrayal, Kaylin's with wounded pride. Amy's voice shook but carried weight. These children are mine. Mine. I suffered for them. I raised them alone. I bled for them. And neither of you, neither your power, nor your wealth, nor your pride, has the right to claim them like trophies. The words hung in the air, raw and defiant. Kaylin's jaw clenched, but it was Brick's reaction that terrified her. He stared at her, unmoving, his eyes burning with questions. Then, slowly, dangerously, he asked, If they are not his, then why, Amy, do you tremble when I hold this paper? Why do you hide them from me? Her lips parted, but before she could speak, heavy footsteps rushed from the far end of the corridor. Elizabeth. Dressed in a flowing emerald gown, her head held high, she swept into the hospital hall like a queen entering her throne room. Gasps followed her arrival, her presence commanding. Mother, Brick muttered under his breath, his jaw tightening. Elizabeth's eyes swept over the scene, the crumpled paper in Kaylin's fist, Amy's pale face, Brick's stormy glare. For a moment, she said nothing, just studied them all with calculating precision. Finally, she spoke. So, it is true. Amy has children. Amy's stomach dropped. Elizabeth's gaze settled on her, sharp and unyielding. Tell me, my daughter-in-law, did you think you could hide them from me forever? Did you think no one would discover them? Mother, enough, Brick growled. But Elizabeth ignored him. She stepped closer to Amy, lowering her voice, though everyone could still hear. I fought for you. I believed in you. I told my son to keep you, to heal with you. And this is how you repay me. By hiding 6 lives. Amy shook her head desperately. No, it's not like that. But Elizabeth raised a hand, silencing her. Then she turned slowly toward her son. Brick, you will bring those children to the mansion. Tonight. Amy's breath hitched. No, she shouted, her voice raw. They are not pawns for your games. They are my children, not yours, not Kaylin's, not anyone's to control. Elizabeth's smile was cold. We shall see, my dear. Lagos courts have a way of deciding such matters. And with my influence, she trailed off, her meaning heavy in the air. Amy's legs weakened again, but she forced herself upright. She would not let them take her children. Not Elizabeth, not Brick, not Kaylin. But as she stared at the 3 of them, powerful, relentless, she realized she was standing on the edge of a battlefield she might not survive. The hospital corridor had become a battlefield without weapons. Doctors, nurses, and even patients stood in corners, whispering nervously, their eyes darting between the 3 powerful figures. Amy could feel sweat trickling down her spine. Her children were still in the lab, unaware that their futures were being gambled like property. Brick's fists clenched at his sides, his eyes fixed on his mother. Mother, you will not dictate how I handle this. Elizabeth didn't flinch. Her posture was unshakable, regal. And you think you can handle it, son? You, who still mourns a dead woman. You, who hasn't even protected your marriage. Do not lecture me on handling what is already spiraling beyond your control. Kaylin sneered, stepping forward. Ah. Finally, I see where your weakness comes from, Brick. A mother who meddles in her son's affairs. Typical. Brick's glare cut into him, but Elizabeth raised a hand, stopping her son from reacting. She fixed her sharp eyes on Kaylin. And you, young man, have disgraced yourself. Do you think Lagos society does not talk? Do you think people will not whisper when they hear that you chased after a woman who rejected you, only to claim children that were never yours? You've humiliated not only yourself, but your family name. Kaylin's face burned with rage. He opened his mouth to retort, but Elizabeth had already turned away from him. Her focus returned to Amy, her tone softer, almost persuasive. Amy, you are afraid. I see it in your eyes. But listen to me, running will not save you. The courts will ask for the truth. And when they do, when they press you about the father of those children, what will you say? Will you lie under oath? Will you risk prison? Or worse, the loss of your children to the state? Amy's lips trembled. She wanted to scream the truth, but her throat burned. She remembered every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every tear she shed while raising the 6 children. She had promised herself no one would take them from her. But Elizabeth's words pierced her like knives. "Mother," Brick said through gritted teeth, "leave her alone. She will answer to me, not you." Elizabeth's smile was faint, dangerous. "She will answer to us all. Especially when the courts demand it." Suddenly, the nurse rushed back from the lab, her face pale with panic. "Madam, sir, there's a problem." All eyes snapped to her. "What problem?" Brick barked. "The children." The nurse swallowed hard. "They are gone." Amy's blood froze. "Gone!" she screamed, pushing past Brett and nearly grabbing the nurse by the arm. "What do you mean gone? Where are my children?" I don't know," the nurse stammered. "They were in the lab." The technician stepped out for a moment, and when he returned, they were no longer there. Brick's face darkened with rage. "Security!" he thundered. His men immediately pulled radios from their belts, speaking rapidly into them. Kaylin's eyes blazed. "This is your doing, Brick. You staged this to take them from me before the truth could spread." "Shut your mouth!" Brick roared, shoving him back so hard that Kaylin stumbled into the wall. "If I wanted the children, I would not need to steal them. I could take them in broad daylight." Amy's hands were trembling so violently she could barely hold her phone. She dialed the school, then the driver, then anyone she thought might know something, but no answer. Tears blurred her vision. "My children," she whispered hoarsely. "Where are they?" Elizabeth's face was unreadable. For the first time, even she seemed shaken. But her eyes sharpened again, suspicion flickering in them. She turned to Amy. "Tell me the truth. Who is behind this? Because no ordinary stranger could walk into this hospital and take 6 children unnoticed. Someone powerful is protecting them." Amy's head spun. Could it be? No. That was impossible. He was supposed to be dead. Her thoughts whirled as she remembered the faint scars on her children's faces, marks they were born with, marks she had never explained to anyone. Marks that didn't belong to either Brick or Kaylin. Brick noticed her silence. He stepped closer, his voice low, accusing. "Who is it, Amy? Who fathered those children?" Amy's lips quivered. She shook her head, backing away. I can't." "You can't." Kaylin spat, his fury returning. "Or you won't. Do you realize what you've done? If my rivals find out about this, they'll drag my family name through the mud. They'll say I chased another man's seed like a desperate fool." "Good," Elizabeth snapped at him coldly. "You deserve the ridicule." The hallway erupted into chaos, guards rushing in and out, phones ringing, doctors whispering. But Amy barely noticed. Her mind was consumed by one terrifying thought. If her children were truly taken, then the one man she feared most might still be alive. The father of her children. The man she had run from. The man who was never supposed to return. Her body trembled as she whispered under her breath, almost to herself. "No, it can't be him." Brick heard it. His sharp eyes narrowed. "Who, Amy?" She bit her lips so hard she tasted blood. She couldn't answer. She couldn't let them know. Not yet. The hospital descended into chaos. Security men in black suits flooded the corridors, their radios crackling with clipped Yoruba and English commands. Nurses and patients ducked into side rooms, whispering nervously about kidnappings, politicians, and the dangerous lives of the wealthy. Amy stood frozen, her breath shallow, her heart slamming painfully against her ribs. The thought of her children being snatched from the hospital filled her with a dread deeper than anything Brick or Kaylin could threaten. Brick barked orders with military precision. "Seal every exit. No one leaves this hospital without my permission. Lock down the gates, check the CCTV. I want to know every face that walked into that lab within the last 30 minutes. "Yes, sir," his men answered in unison, scattering like trained hounds. Kaylin shoved his hands through his hair, pacing furiously. "This is madness. My family will not tolerate this. 6 children vanishing under your nose. Brick, it will be your shame, not mine." Brick's glare snapped to him. "You still dare to open your mouth? You brought them here for a DNA test like property in a market. And now they're missing. Pray I don't discover your hands in this. Mine. Kaylin's voice cracked with rage. If I wanted them, I would have taken them in broad daylight. I don't hide behind shadows. Amy barely heard them. She pressed her back against the cold wall, her hands gripping her head. Elizabeth's perfume, the strong, royal scent of roses and oud, swept past her as the older woman stepped closer. Elizabeth's eyes bored into Amy's, calm but terrifying. Who has taken them? I don't know, Amy whispered, her voice broken. You do. Elizabeth's tone was chillingly certain. I see it in your eyes. You are not only afraid, they are not just missing to you. You believe someone specific has them. Amy swallowed hard, but her throat burned. She couldn't speak. She couldn't say his name. Brick stormed back, his expression thunderous. The cameras were tampered with. Whoever took the children knew what they were doing. This was planned. Elizabeth's face tightened. Planned? By whom? Brick's jaw clenched. Only someone with equal power could challenge me this way. Someone who wants to strike me where I am most vulnerable. Amy's heart lurched. She wanted to scream no, Brick. It's not about you. It's about me. But she couldn't. Not yet. Kaylin snorted bitterly. Or maybe, Brick, you are not as powerful as you think. Not every shadow bends to your will. Some shadows belong to men far darker than you can imagine. Brick's hand twitched as though itching to strike him, but Brett stepped forward, speaking quietly into his ear. Brick froze, listening. His eyes narrowed sharply. What did you say? Brick demanded. Brett hesitated, then repeated. Sir, one of the guards at the back entrance reported seeing black SUVs leave the hospital compound moments before the lockdown. No license plates. He swears he saw at least 6 children being hurried inside. Amy's chest constricted. Black SUVs. No plates. That wasn't random. That was deliberate. Professional. Organized. Brick's rage burned hotter. And you let them leave? The guard stammered over the radio. Sir, I tried to stop them, but they had government seals on the windshield. I thought they were federal security. A heavy silence fell. Elizabeth's face turned pale beneath her makeup. Government seals. Kaylin stiffened. No, that's not possible. Brick's hand crushed the paper of the DNA result in his fist. His voice was deadly calm. This is bigger than us. Someone high is moving against me. Against all of us. Amy's vision blurred as tears welled. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from crying out. Only one man could command such influence. Only one man could walk into any place, even Brick's guarded territory, and snatch what he wanted with impunity. Him. The ghost from her past. The father of her children. She had run for years, believing he was gone. Dead. Buried. But the marks on her children's faces, the whispers she had ignored, the shadows she always felt lurking, they all returned now, pressing down like a nightmare come alive. Elizabeth turned sharply to Amy. If you know who has them, tell us now. Do not play games. If government men have them, then your silence could mean those children disappear forever. Amy's lips trembled. If I tell you, none of us will be safe. Brick stepped forward, his eyes blazing. Do you think I am afraid of anyone in this country? Tell me who. Who, Amy? Her silence screamed louder than words. Kaylin suddenly froze, his face paling as realization seemed to dawn on him. He whispered hoarsely, almost to himself, No, it can't be him. He was supposed to be dead. Amy's blood ran cold. She snapped her head toward him, eyes wide. Brick caught the look they exchanged and his suspicion deepened. His voice was harsh, demanding. Who are you talking about? Who is him? Elizabeth's brows furrowed, confusion mixing with unease. Who? Kaylin. Kaylin's throat bobbed as he swallowed, his eyes locked on Amy. If it is who I think, then, Amy, you have dragged us all into hell. The corridor seemed to darken. Amy's knees weakened, but she forced herself upright. She could not let his name escape their lips. She would not. Because if she admitted it aloud, then her worst nightmare was no longer a shadow. It would be real. Flesh and blood. Alive. And coming for her children. The air in the hospital corridor had grown suffocating. The weight of unspoken truths pressed on everyone like a storm waiting to break. Outside, Lagos night traffic roared faintly, But inside, the silence was broken only by radios buzzing and footsteps pounding as security scrambled to obey Brick's orders. Amy's body shook, but she stood rooted, eyes darting from Brick to Elizabeth to Kaylin. All three were powerful, all three dangerous in their own way, but none of them terrified her as much as the unseen hand that had just stolen her children. Brick's phone buzzed. He answered sharply. "Talk." His face hardened as he listened. When he ended the call, his voice was ice. The SUVs left through the third mainland bridge. Escorts. No one dared stop them. Whoever took those children had clearance from federal forces. Elizabeth's lips tightened, her composure cracking for the first time. Federal forces. Impossible. Unless, her voice trailed off. Kaylin laughed bitterly, though his laugh sounded more like defeat. Unless it's him. And if it's him, Brick, even your empire cannot touch him. His shadow stretches from Abuja to London. People still whisper his name in fear, as if he were a spirit. Brick's sharp gaze cut to him. You speak riddles, Kaylin. If you know something, say it. But Kaylin's eyes flicked to Amy, his jaw tightening. He shook his head. Ask her. She carries his secret. Elizabeth turned slowly to Amy, her eyes narrowing. Tell me the truth. Who is the father of those children? Amy's throat burned, her lips trembling. She pressed her palm to her chest, as though it could stop the hammering inside. If I say his name, you won't believe me. And if you do, none of us will sleep in peace again. Brick's voice thundered. Then you had better speak, woman. Because right now, your silence makes you the enemy. Amy's tears spilled. She had never seen Brick so unhinged, so close to losing his grip. Yet even in his fury, she could feel the raw sting of betrayal in his voice. Before she could answer, a group of police officers entered the hospital, led by a stern man in uniform. The insignia on his chest gleamed under the harsh lights, Deputy Commissioner. His presence silenced the entire corridor. Mr. Sue, the officer said, addressing Brick with rigid formality, we have orders to escort you, your mother, and Madam Amy to the station. A case has been filed regarding the unlawful confinement of 6 minors at this hospital. The word struck like thunder. Amy's eyes widened. Unlawful confinement? They were kidnapped. The officer's gaze didn't waver. That is for the courts to decide. Until then, you will all come with us. Brick's fury simmered. Do you know who you're speaking to? The officer didn't flinch. I know exactly who you are, Mr. Sue. But orders came from above. Very far above. A ripple of unease ran through everyone. Elizabeth's face paled. Even Brick's guards hesitated, unsure of how to act. Kaylin muttered under his breath, his voice trembling. Only one man could bend the police this way. He's alive. Amy's legs weakened, but she forced herself not to collapse. Her worst fear was materializing before her eyes. The children's abduction, the government seals, the police siding against Brick, it all pointed to the same truth. The father of her children had returned. And he was moving pieces like a chess master, cornering them all before revealing his hand. The police began to usher them toward the exit. Elizabeth leaned close to Amy, her whisper sharp as a blade. If this man is who I think he is, then you are a bigger fool than I ever imagined. You've brought a ghost back into this house, and you will pay the price. Amy's tears burned, but her voice cracked with defiance. I did what I had to do to protect my children. You wouldn't understand. Elizabeth scoffed. No. But the courts will. As they were escorted outside, flashing red and blue lights bathed the hospital walls. Crowds had gathered, reporters already snapping pictures, their voices carrying through the humid night air. Brick Sue arrested. 6 missing children. Scandal in Lagos high society. Brick lifted his head high, but his jaw was locked tight. He was a man used to controlling narratives, but now the city's gossip machine had seized him like prey. Amy lowered her face, shielding herself from the flashing cameras. Her entire body quaked with shame, fear, and despair. But beneath all that was something fiercer, rage. Whoever had taken her children wasn't just playing with power. He was playing with her heart. Inside the police van, Brick finally broke the silence. His voice was low, dangerous, each word deliberate. When I find the man behind this, I will bury him. Amy's breath caught. For the first time, she whispered the truth, not loud enough for anyone else to hear, but loud enough for herself. You can't bury him, Brick. He's already risen from the grave. The police convoy snaked through Lagos traffic, sirens slicing the humid night air. Flashing red and blue lights bounced off glass towers, unfinished flyovers, and street hawkers scattering at the sight of uniformed men. Inside the lead van, Amy sat wedged between Elizabeth and a silent policewoman. Brick was across from her, his head bowed slightly, though his clenched fists betrayed the storm inside him. Kaylin rode in another vehicle behind, still raging and spitting curses at anyone who would listen. Amy's heart was heavy. She had lived through poverty, exile, and the loneliness of raising 6 children in silence. But never had she felt as trapped as she did now, paraded through Lagos like a criminal. Outside, the media frenzy was already exploding. TV vans trailed the convoy. Reporters shouted through megaphones, their words slicing through the night. Brick Sue detained by police. Who owns Amy's 6 hidden children? Scandal rocks Lagos high society. Every camera lens felt like a knife. Amy lowered her face, but she could already imagine tomorrow's headlines. Her children's pictures would be splashed everywhere. Their innocence would be lost to gossip and speculation. At the station, they were herded into a dimly lit conference hall instead of a cell, an unspoken sign of Brick's influence. Still, the humiliation was the same. Uniformed men lined the walls, and senior officers hovered like vultures waiting for meat. The deputy commissioner reappeared, flanked by aides. His tone was clipped, formal. Mr. Sue. Madam Amy. Madam Elizabeth. Mr. Kaylin. You are all here because a petition was filed. 6 minors were brought into this hospital for tests without the consent of both parents. Their sudden disappearance has now escalated the matter. Until the investigation is complete, the courts will decide custody and guardianship. Amy's breath caught. Courts. The very thing Elizabeth had warned of. Elizabeth adjusted her wrapper calmly, speaking with the weight of her social standing. Commissioner, this is a private family matter. There is no need for the courts. The man's jaw tightened. Madam Elizabeth, with due respect, this case has gone beyond private. The children are missing. Government resources were used to abduct them. We cannot bury this under your name. Brick leaned forward, his voice like steel. Then dig. Find them. My men will cooperate. But if you think for a second that a judge can decide where those children belong, you underestimate me. The officer didn't flinch. Your power may silence newspapers, Mr. Sue, but not the federal court. The petition came from Abuja. Orders are above all of us. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Abuja. The seat of federal power. If the petition had come from there, it wasn't ordinary. It was deliberate. Amy's skin prickled. He's pulling strings from Abuja already. He's showing me that he can touch every corner of my life. Kaylin, brought into the hall by 2 guards, smirked bitterly. So, it begins. You thought you could bury him, Amy? No. He's risen. And he's already making us dance to his tune. Elizabeth's head snapped toward him. Who? Say his name. But Kaylin only laughed, the sound hollow. If I speak his name, you won't sleep tonight. Perhaps not ever. Brick slammed his palm on the table, the sound echoing. Enough riddles. Amy. His eyes locked on hers, burning. If you don't tell me who the father is, the court will drag it out of you. Do you want to face that shame in public? Amy's lips parted, but no sound came. She thought of her children's small hands, their bright eyes, their laughter. If his name entered this room, their lives would never be their own again. She lowered her head. I can't. Elizabeth rose suddenly, her voice sharp. Then I will find out myself. And when I do, Amy, not even God will protect you from the consequences. The room fell into tense silence. Moments later, a court official entered with stamped papers. He announced, an emergency hearing has been scheduled for tomorrow morning. Federal High Court, Lagos Division. The judge will decide temporary guardianship until the children are found. Amy's heart sank. Tomorrow. By tomorrow, the whole of Nigeria would know. The session broke up, but the war had only begun. Outside, media lights blinded them again as they were escorted into waiting vehicles. Elizabeth whispered coldly as she climbed into hers, if you think you can survive the judgment of this country, girl, you are more foolish than I thought. Kaylin barked at reporters, claiming injustice, threatening lawsuits, but his voice was drowned by the sea of cameras. Brick, silent and brooding, entered his car without a word. His assistant Brett followed, his phone buzzing non-stop with calls from business allies, rivals, and perhaps enemies smelling blood. Amy was placed into a separate vehicle. Alone at last, her tears flowed freely, but her whisper was filled with fire. If it's you, if you've truly come back, I swear on everything I suffered, you will not take them from me again. In the distance, under the flicker of neon Lagos billboards, a black SUV lingered, unseen by most. Inside, a man sat in the shadows, his face hidden but his eyes glinting with satisfaction. He lifted a phone to his ear, speaking in a voice low and commanding. Everything is in motion. Tomorrow, they will all learn who truly holds power in this city. And then he ended the call with a smile that could freeze blood. The following morning, Lagos woke to scandal. Newspapers screamed headlines in bold. Brick sues marriage in turmoil, 6 hidden children missing. Federal court to decide guardianship in high-profile case. Mystery father. Who owns the bloodline? TV anchors spoke in polished English, switching into Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo as they dissected the drama. Hashtags trended on Twitter, #Amy Scandal, #Bricksu, #6 children. Memes flooded WhatsApp groups across the country, turning private heartbreak into national entertainment. At the Federal High Court in Ikoyi, the gate swarmed with journalists, bloggers, and curious onlookers. Police barricades kept the crowd at bay, but cameras still flashed relentlessly as convoys arrived one after another. Elizabeth emerged first, regal in a purple wrapper, her jewel towering like a crown. Her face was stern, lips pressed tight, but she walked with the authority of a matriarch who had weathered storms before. Kaylin came next, flanked by lawyers in crisp suits. He waved to reporters, his expression somewhere between fury and desperation. "The truth will come out today," he shouted, his voice carried by microphones shoved in his face. Brick's arrival silenced the crowd. His convoy of sleek black cars slid in, escorted by private security. He stepped out in a dark tailored agbada, his expression cold, unyielding. Flashbulbs lit up his chiseled features, but he ignored the chaos, striding inside as if the building itself belonged to him. Brett followed closely, clutching documents and answering calls without pause. And then Amy arrived. She stepped out of a modest car arranged by court order, not Brick's wealth or Elizabeth's influence. Her simple Ankara gown clung to her slim frame, her jewel understated compared to Elizabeth's grandeur. Yet the crowd gasped at her beauty, at the fire in her eyes despite the tears she'd cried. The cameras drank her in mercilessly. "Madam Amy, who is the father? Are you leaving Brick for Kaylin? Where are the children?" She said nothing, gripping her bag tightly as she hurried into the building. Every step felt like walking through fire. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy with tension. The judge, a stern woman with years of federal experience, took her seat, her gavel striking the bench. "This matter before us," she began, her voice calm yet commanding, "concerns the guardianship and welfare of 6 minors whose whereabouts are presently unknown. Until they are located, the court will hear arguments regarding rightful guardianship and the claims made by all involved parties." Elizabeth's lawyers stood first, presenting her as a stabilizing matriarch. "My lord, Madam Elizabeth Sue seeks temporary guardianship. She has the resources, the experience, and the moral standing to care for these children until clarity emerges. She fears for their safety under Madam Amy's secrecy." Amy's heart clenched. Elizabeth wanted to take her children. Next, Kaylin's lawyers rose, their words sharp. "My lord, Mr. Kaylin has long-standing ties to Madam Amy. Evidence will show he is the biological father of the minors, and thus, his claim supersedes all others. It was he who brought the children for DNA testing. He was denied truth by deception." The courtroom buzzed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Amy clenched her fists, remembering the test that had cleared him, but in court, truth was often drowned by power and spin. Finally, Brickside stood. His lead attorney, a grey-haired man with a booming voice, declared, "My lord, as the legal husband of Madam Amy, Bricksu holds rightful authority over the children until proven otherwise. This is not merely custom, it is the law of this land." Brick's eyes burned on Amy as those words echoed. He wasn't just fighting for the children. He was fighting for his pride. The judge turned to Amy. "Madam Amy, you stand at the center of this storm. Do you have representation?" Amy's voice shook. "Yes, my lord." A young female lawyer rose beside her, clearly outnumbered by the high-powered legal teams of the others, but her determination showed. The judge nodded. "Then speak. Who are the rightful guardians of these children?" Amy swallowed hard. Her lawyer stood tall. "My lord, the rightful guardian is their mother, Amy herself. No court can strip her of this unless neglect or unfitness is proven. She alone carried them, birthed them, raised them. And the men before you, wealthy though they may be, are bound by greed, pride, and vengeance, not love for these children." The gallery erupted in murmurs. Some clapped quietly, others hissed. The judge raised her hand for silence. "Enough." She leaned forward, fixing her gaze on Amy. "But Madam Amy, the question remains, who is their father? If this court is to decide their future, their paternity cannot remain a mystery." Amy's chest tightened. The world seemed to spin. She could feel Elizabeth's glare drilling into her, Brick's fury burning like fire, and Kaylin's sneer waiting for her downfall. She opened her mouth, then froze. Because at that moment, the heavy wooden doors of the courtroom swung open with a loud creak. Every head turned. Men in dark suits entered first, their movements precise, disciplined. They carried themselves not like private guards, but like trained operatives. Behind them, a tall figure stepped into the light, his face shadowed under the wide brim of his cap. Gasps rippled through the hall. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing wildly. Amy's blood drained from her face. Her heart thudded painfully, her body trembling uncontrollably. The man lifted his head slowly, revealing a face she had prayed never to see again. The father of her children. Alive. And smiling as if he had orchestrated every step of this chaos. The silence inside the Federal High Court was deafening. Even the ceiling fans seemed to pause as the tall figure moved forward, flanked by his suited men. His polished shoes echoed against the tiled floor, each step deliberate, each step claiming space that no one dared to challenge. Reporters, usually fearless, lowered their voices. Some stopped scribbling entirely, their pens trembling in their hands. Cameramen adjusted lenses with nervous fingers, unsure if pointing them at this man was an act of bravery or suicide. Amy couldn't breathe. She gripped the edge of the wooden bench until her knuckles whitened, her body trembling. She had seen this man in her nightmares, his shadow behind every decision, every tear, every sleepless night. She had run from him, buried his memory, built a fragile life on the belief that he was gone. But now he was here. Alive. Elizabeth's sharp gasp broke the silence. The woman who rarely showed weakness pressed a hand to her chest, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered under her breath. You should not," her voice faltered, the words swallowed by shock. Brick's entire frame stiffened. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Brick's glare never wavered from the figure approaching. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. For the first time in years, Brick looked unsettled, not by wealth, not by power, but by the presence of this man. Kaylin's smirk dissolved. His confidence evaporated like mist under scorching sun. He stumbled one step back, muttering to himself. "No, this cannot be." He was finished. His voice cracked, and the courtroom buzzed with whispers. The suited men stopped just short of the bench. They spread slightly, forming a shield around their leader. Finally, the man removed his cap. The room gasped in unison. He was older now, streaks of grey at his temples, but his presence was as commanding as ever. His eyes, piercing, cold, calculating, swept across the room like a hawk surveying prey. His smile was faint but sharp, the kind that cut deeper than anger. The judge herself froze for a fraction of a second before regaining composure. "Order! This is a court of law. Who enters unannounced?" The man ignored her question, his gaze landing squarely on Amy. His voice, deep and smooth, rolled across the chamber. "Did you truly believe you could erase me, Amy? That you could bury my bloodline and raise my heirs in shadows?" Amy's lips trembled. You're dead. I saw." He chuckled softly, a sound that silenced her further. "Death. For men like me, death is a rumor. A whisper for the weak to comfort themselves with. But his eyes darkened. "I live." The entire courtroom erupted in murmurs. Lawyers leaned over, whispering frantically. Reporters typed furiously, already sending updates to their editors. Mysterious father alive, shocks federal court. Elizabeth rose abruptly, her regal composure shattering. "How dare you step into this court? You were erased. Expelled from this family." Her voice wavered, fury and fear mixing in equal measure. The man turned his gaze on her, the faint smile never leaving his face. Elizabeth, still clinging to illusions of control? You thought your hands could rewrite destiny? No. Destiny rewrites you. Brick finally stood, his chair screeching against the floor. His voice thundered across the hall. You dare show your face before me? After what you did? After the disgrace you brought to our name? But the man's eyes didn't waver. Instead, they glittered with cruel amusement. Brick. Still your mother's loyal soldier. Still fighting wars you barely understand. Tell me, are you sure those children you claim to protect are not mine? Gasps filled the chamber. The judge struck her gavel furiously. Order! This is a court of law. Silence, or I will clear the gallery. But her authority was drowned in the storm. Amy rose suddenly, her voice breaking, desperate. Stop! Stop this! Tears blurred her vision. Do not drag them into this madness. They are innocent. Innocent! The man's gaze softened for a fraction of a second as it lingered on her. Innocent! His smile faded, his tone turning sharp as glass. They are my legacy. My blood. And no one, not you, not Brick, not Elizabeth, will keep them from me. He snapped his fingers. One of his men stepped forward, placing a thick envelope on the judge's desk. Inside, the man continued, are sealed documents. DNA confirmation. Government recognition. Court orders from Abuja. His eyes flickered toward Kaylin, who visibly shrank back. I have returned, not as rumor, not as ghost, but as law. The judge hesitated, her hand hovering over the envelope. Even she looked unsettled. Amy staggered back, her knees nearly buckling. No, no, you cannot. He stepped closer, his presence filling the room, his shadow falling across her. I can. And I will. The gavel struck again, but its echo was powerless against the storm that had just broken open. The courtroom had become a furnace of whispers. His presence was like dry harmattan wind, invisible yet suffocating, stirring dust into every eye and throat. The judge rapped her gavel again, harder this time. Bang! 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 Order! This court will have order. But her words were swallowed in the murmurs. It can't be him, he died 10 years ago. No, they said he fled to Ghana after the scandal. I heard he was imprisoned abroad. How can he stand here now? If this man is alive, Nigeria is not safe. Amy pressed her palms together tightly, her lips trembling with silent prayers. She had thought herself strong, but one glance at him brought her back to those dark years, the secret nights, the threats, the helplessness she had endured when she was younger. The children she bore were miracles, but his return was a curse that threatened to destroy everything. Elizabeth slowly sank back into her chair. For the first time in her long reign as matriarch, her hands trembled visibly. She leaned toward her lawyer, whispering fiercely, though her eyes never left the man. They told me he was gone. They promised me. I buried him with my own money. How is he standing here? The lawyer swallowed, unable to answer. Brick remained standing, muscles rigid, his dark eyes locked on the intruder. You think this stunt makes you powerful? You think you can waltz into Lagos, into my court, and declare yourself father? His voice rumbled, low but dangerous. The man finally turned his full attention to him. Brick, you were always the loudest, weren't you? Always shouting, always fighting. Yet here we are, your mother powerless, your wife crumbling, your court shaking, and me, his smile sharpened. I'm still the one writing the story. Brick's hand twitched at his side. Brett, standing close, murmured quickly, Sir, control yourself. If you lose your temper here, they will spin it against you. Across the aisle, Kaylin had gone pale. He leaned toward his lead counsel, whispering, we must withdraw. If he is truly who I think, then even the courts won't save me. Withdraw, the lawyer hissed. Your claim is already public. If you retreat now, you'll look like a fraud. But Kaylin wasn't listening anymore. His eyes darted toward the doors as if measuring the distance to escape. The judge, struggling to contain her own unease, reached for the envelope left on her bench. Her hand shook faintly as she tore the seal and scanned the contents. Her brows furrowed deeper with each page, her lips pressing into a thin line. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her shock. These are certified government documents, endorsed by high-ranking federal authorities. A wave of murmurs swept through the gallery like thunder rolling across the lagoon. Amy's heart plummeted. Abuja. Of course. That was why the petition came so swiftly, Why, the court bowed even before his presence. He wasn't just a man, he was backed by an empire that stretched beyond Lagos, beyond the Sioux family's reach. Your Honor, Amy's young lawyer interjected bravely, her voice cutting through the tension. We must question the authenticity of these documents. We demand verification. My client's rights are being trampled by power plays that have nothing to do with the children's welfare. The judge hesitated, clearly torn, but the man only chuckled. Verification. He tapped the desk with one finger, deliberate, confident. By all means. Call Abuja. Call the presidency. Call the generals. They will all confirm what you already fear, that I am not only father to these children, but a man this nation cannot afford to defy. His words sent shivers through the hall. Generals. Presidency. This was no ordinary tycoon or businessman. This was someone who had lived in the corridors of power, who had danced with shadows and returned with fire. Elizabeth's voice cracked through the silence, sharp as a whip. You're bluffing. They would never let you return. They swore. He cut her off with a single look, his eyes gleaming with cold amusement. Elizabeth, it seems Abuja no longer belongs to you. Brick's fists tightened at his sides, his teeth grinding audibly. You may scare politicians, he growled, but you will not take her. And you will not take those children. The man tilted his head, studying Brick like one might study an eager but wounded animal. Then he shifted his gaze back to Amy. You see, Amy. His tone softened, dangerously tender. You tried to hide them. You thought you could bury my legacy under another man's name. But blood speaks. Blood always finds its way home. And now, so have I. Amy felt the room tilt. She wanted to scream, to deny him, to drag her children far away from this storm. But her voice failed her. In her silence, the man's smile returned, slow and sharp. He spread his arms slightly, as if embracing the chaos around him. Let the court record this day, he said, his voice carrying like a sermon. The father has returned. The heirs will be claimed. And Lagos will remember who truly rules its bloodlines. The judge's gavel struck again, but the cracks in her authority were visible now. Outside, the crowd of journalists surged against the barricades, hungry for confirmation of the rumors. Who was he? How was he alive? The mystery was already spilling into every newsroom and parlor across Nigeria. And inside the courtroom, Amy whispered to herself, voice trembling so faintly only she could hear. No. I can't let history repeat. I won't let him take them, even if it kills me,